Welcome back to the Visually Hidden Selects podcast, episode 58. This month we are joined by the lovely Louise Lynch, who is in the Black Lodge in Twin Peaks. Is that where you are right now?
Zebratown. I'm in Zebratown.
Okay, very cool,
Hey,
very
guys.
cool. And we are talking about The Endless Summer from 1966, which is our VHS selection this month. Directed by Bruce Brown, narrated by Bruce Brown, produced by Bruce Brown, filmed by Bruce Brown, edited by Bruce Brown. I can relate to this guy for sure. This film is really kind of it's like a little gem in the cinematic universe. It really is, and you really only appreciate it or understand it, of course, if you've seen it. Talking about it doesn't really do it justice. In the VHS, I hope people who saw it and then checked it out enjoyed it, but really you just got to, like, you can't really go about it any other way. It's not like Star Wars, where it has this big legacy behind it and all this merchandise and this reach that just goes into your wallet and takes your cash. This film, if you're not looking for it, you can very easily miss it. And I hope that with the VHS and with this podcast, we can maybe get some more eyes on it, because I do think it is just a spectacular contribution to the cinematic universe.
I know that Bruce is. It seems like he gets introduced as like not a Hollywood director, not maybe as some of the other directors might have some experience. But there were points in watching this documentary where I thought he might be floating. Like there were shots where I didn't know where he was, that it almost like took me out of the documentary for a moment, because I wasn't expecting some of the beautiful shots that were there. And I guess that would fall under cinematography. But that was one thing that kind of, he kind of had like three big things going on. He was like a great gatekeeper for introducing people to the surfing culture, really good storyteller and narrator, but then really good filmmaker. He was clearly like, he had some innate, practices that it's a really polished documentary.
Yeah, and for the time that it was made, especially, I mean, 1966, and I mentioned this in the VHS, like, documentaries, they were around. They've been around for a long time, but they were very industrial, or they were very, like, historical. And Bruce Brown, he had done quite a few leading up
Mm.
to this, so he had honed his skill, and this one is just this is the one everybody talks about. I mean, there's a sequel, The Endless Summer 2, that he made like 25 years later in the early 90s, or 30 years later. And even that one, it's like it's a more contemporary film, but it's
Mhm.
not this film. There's just something in here that, where he was like at like the height and the peak of his like filmmaking craft, and his passion is really what it is. His passion for surfing and storytelling that just comes together in this particular one. And yeah, the cinematography, I think, is a real highlight of this particular film. Like, when you're watching it, there's some shots that's like, where is
Mhm.
he? Where
Mhm.
he's like up on a mountain filming them driving down the coast. Like, did they like drop him off and
And
then
then go back?
go pick,
Yeah.
yeah, like,
I don't know.
or he's like, 3 dunes away watching them like trek across the desert, like, it's not like he
No
like,
footprints either.
yeah,
Who knows how he got there? He floated.
like, it's not like he like threw the camera and it just landed perfectly for the frame, like, no, he had all this in his mind as a filmmaker, as a storyteller, constructing a narrative. And we talked about on Coming Distractions, you're discovering it, you're finding it, you have an idea of what you want to accomplish with a documentary, but you can't control everything. You can't control the weather. You can't control people's reactions. And, they go to some really far out places in this
Mhm.
documentary where, like, it's dangerous. Like, yeah, they could have died, you know, any number of ways,
Mhm.
and they live to tell the tale. And this is a document about that tale. And it's incredible.
Yeah, and I think with surfers too, like the stereotype anyway is like real chill, And so I think that was one thing that was stood out to me, where he had to be pretty calculating to set up these shots, but then it still had that, like, well, it is kind of exhausting at some points to watch just because of the miles that they covered. Like they just go everywhere almost. But it does have like a nice chill feel to it, even though I'm sure what, like Robert and Mike, I know how they haven't been introduced yet. Like I love that they're like wearing suits and they have their surfboards, and like what did Bruce pack? Like you don't get to see his suitcase or how much equipment.
There are some shots where Robert's carrying the tripod for him at the airport. You can,
Mhm.
if you know what you're looking at, you can see
I
it.
suppose.
But Steve, was this the first time you ever saw the movie?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you guys. Pete, I know you've seen it probably a ton of times. Louise, is this your first
Mhm.
time seeing it, or have you seen this before?
2
2
times.
times. Okay.
I watched it twice. Yeah, because I think I started to blur because they just travel so much. I was losing track where they were on the globe.
Yeah, so this is my first time seeing it. I think also it's the first time when you told me this is what we're doing, that might be the first time I ever heard of this movie.
Mhm.
Really?
Yeah.
Me
So I
too.
don't know that I heard it before. I think it was confusing with some it's like when you said it, like I think I confused it with like a feature film.
Mm.
With
Like a
with
narrative?
something, yeah, with something in the summer in the title. So yeah, this is my first time watching this movie, and I put it on, and I gotta be honest with you, first 15 minutes, I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna get through this. I don't know if I'm digging this. I wasn't expecting, because when you say documentary, I'm so, like you said earlier, all the streaming documentaries and all the like the sit down interview type of documentary, I've become accustomed to that. And this is more like a
Mhm.
much more like a National Geographic, type of, and here we witness the surfers, on the break. It was like
Mhm.
more of that kind of a thing. I was like, "Oh, I wasn't expecting that. I thought we were gonna talk to the surfers, but then we don't." And then, like,
Mhm.
his narration was very dry humor, very quirky, and I was like, "Oh, I don't know. This is like, if Bob Saget was, like, doing America's Funniest Home Videos, but narrating, like, a 1960s, like, school film, like the old
Uh-huh.
Mr. Bungles they show on Pee-wee's Playhouse." Um, but
Mhm.
then it's like, okay, I fell asleep like 20 minutes in during the when you
Mm.
get to Africa. So the next day, like, I gotta pick this up. I gotta focus. I'm gonna give this a fair shot. And as I watched it, I grew to like it more and more. And I was like, oh,
Mhm.
because I think once I got past where I thought it was gonna be, okay, well, it's not that.
Mhm.
So let me just fresh head
Mhm.
now, fresh eyes, look at it for what it is. And then I started to really enjoy it. I got used to Bruce's humor and his delivery. I actually
Mhm.
Mhm.
laughed out loud a couple times, um,
Uh-huh.
uh, when he said that the boys were very interested when the girl surfers were around. That one with the
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
bikini, like
Uh-huh.
bending over on the
Oh,
surf.
the chest
Yeah.
protector.
So that stuff started. I laughed out, like I said, a couple times, and then I found myself when the movie wrapped up at the end. I felt a little sad, like, oh,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
the adventure's over, like we're going home.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, who wants to go home? Yeah,
Yeah, it's like the ultimate road trip,
yeah,
right? And, like, they're like 2 young guys. It's kind of the thing that, like, everybody wants to do, and you get to, like, join them for it.
yeah. I was like, this is.
That's cool.
I'm glad I stuck it through. I'm glad I didn't bail out on it, because I said, like, my preconceived notion of what I thought it was going to be got in my way, and I let it go. And
Mhm.
I'm glad I let it go. I did enjoy it. I thought, and then, like, just as I'm enjoying it more and more, when we get to those points where Bruce has got the camera, like, on the surfboard, I'm like, how the fuck are they doing that? Like, in the
Mhm.
60s, like, there was no
Yeah.
waterproof camera. Like, what the fuck? How are they doing all that stuff? Like that camera be ruined. I won't take my phone near the pool. Like the iPhone. Like, this guy's bringing a camera in the water. What the fuck is this? So I was like, wow. But some of those shots, because I'm a terrible swimmer. So when
Mhm.
they're in Hawaii
Mm.
on those 40-foot waves, like, I have anxiety watching that, because I'm like, I would die. I'm not getting out of that.
Mhm.
And the
Mhm.
fact that he captured all that stuff, and you could, kind of feel like what it was like to be on a surfboard, because I've never been on one. I don't think I'd ever go on one, because, like I said, I'm not a great swimmer. But it was a cool visual, because, like, wow, I would probably never would have that perspective, because I'm not getting on a surfboard. But you could kind of
Yeah.
see what that feels like. That was kind of a cool moment.
Yeah, I loved, like, when they had he showed them, uh, just studying the waves, and he said they would study them for like hours before like the first person would go out, and you could see like the tension in their shoulders, but then also explaining why they fall
Mhm.
away from their surfboard the way that they do, and then it's just the collage of examples.
Hmm.
That was pretty. Oh, it was eye-opening. I don't surf either.
Yeah, and I think that's a great I guess way to say it. It's like it's eye-opening. Yeah, you
Mhm.
think of surfing and you have all these like images of like the stoner surfer, like Jeff Spicoli, right? Ordering pizza to class, and like
Point Break.
yeah,
That's
they're
what they
they're just they're these kind of laid back,
bank robbers.
guys who just love nature and this and that, and
Mhm.
they're, or like Bill and Ted, they're just these like Mimbo kind of guys. And really it's like, no, like they're just regular people. But you go into this film with like no knowledge of surfing whatsoever, and you
Mhm.
leave with like an actual experience and understanding of it, which like I wish that there was a documentary or a film like this for football, because then I would understand
Mm.
that fucking sport. You know what I mean? I've had people try to explain football to me for fucking decades, and I know like basic fundamentals of like where the end zone is and like what the goal of the fucking game is. But if you tell me like you're offsides, go fuck yourself. I'm sorry. I got nothing for you.
Well,
That
and I
that
think
means
that
that means nothing. That means nothing to me. Hang 10, I got that.
Mhm.
All right, yeah,
Mhm.
that's when 10 toes go over the edge of the board. You're hanging 10. You're on the end of the
Mhm.
board. Got it. Good.
Yeah, I have a whole glossary. There were phrases that that's what Bruce did really well, I think, because he really is like he is making the film, but he's really like the gatekeeper to introduce you. So you get to hang out with them as they globetrot. And he kind of explains everything to you. So I think that was the thing that pulled me in. And so I love some of the terms like getting a place wired. I don't think I'll
Mhm.
ever forget that. Or even like the anatomy of the wave from their perspective. So like getting what was it? Like getting covered up was one of the terms that they use. And I like when he described like all of the white when a wave goes down as like the soup.
Mhm.
Mm.
There were just some phrases in there that like I was taking notes on what they were saying. But honestly, the scene that hooked me was the one right in the beginning. Like there are all these like great shots that are like very red, very hot, right? Of like the ocean and the sun and everything. But there's one shot where I think a wave has just left the sand, and then like there's like the water on the surface of the sand that leaves, but then if you've ever watched a wave leave or like go back into the ocean, there's also like the saturated sand, and you kind of see the water like fall away underneath from that. It's a shot of that like is something if you've ever been a kid on the shore, we've probably all watched that before. So there was I don't know if you guys remember that, but there's a shot of that in the beginning that like after that I was hooked because then I think it kind of goes straight into that relationship with nature and the relationship with the ocean that they have, and like there's beauty and then there's also like the stonefish in
Mm.
Lago, right? Like things like that that they have to put up with. It just has it all in it.
I'm saying to myself, these guys gonna really go around the world? Like, like how far we go? Like,
Mhm.
what's define around the world in your terms? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then they do. It's like,
Mhm.
holy shit! And I just kept thinking, like, wow. Just imagine that. You're like the whole summer. That's what you're doing. Yeah.
The whole winter.
Right. Well,
The
yeah,
Yeah,
whole
the whole
the whole
winter.
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 The whole winter. They make the endless summer. But yeah, you're doing what you love to do, and I feel like, could you do that now? Things are so
Mhm.
expensive, and they're living on with the hotels like $30 a night.
Yeah.
Not getting that now.
But for them,
And
you
in
know, it was.
1966, that was
Yeah.
like, holy
That was a
shit,
lot of
yeah.
money, right?
Yeah, they got hosed.
But so
Mhm.
it's like, yeah, the fact that they could afford to go do that, and then I think that's part of the sadness I felt when it was over. Is like, man, you never get to do that again, or if you could,
Mhm.
it might be harder, more expensive as time goes on.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was just striking to me that they actually went around like around the world. Like, holy shit, I'm that's impressive. And the
Mhm.
Mhm.
commitment, and like I would just think like when I fly, not that I fly a lot, but when I do, how tired I am. And these guys are like, "Fuck, I gotta get to the beach real quick and catch some waves. Like,
Well, they were like
catch some waves. I need a
19,
nap."
20.
It's yeah,
They're
Uh-huh.
around there.
they're
Yeah, but
young
also
guys.
I think too, like,
Yeah, we're gonna
really
cross the
fit.
equator for the third time.
Oh,
Yeah,
baby.
yeah. Yeah, I think they were in their prime. I think the other thing too is they weren't like, they were going out into the world, but they were also like, in some places, I think the film spoke to the community
Mhm.
of surfers, or that was one of my takeaways that, I loved how everybody was introduced, so it was like name and location,
Mm.
right? And it really was like a nature documentary, like, you didn't talk to them, you were just observing them, like, in their
Mhm.
natural habitat. And then when they were in, I think it was South Africa, people heard that they were there, and they would I don't know if it was, literally this length, but they would drive 400 miles, shake their hand, and then drive home,
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
just to come, like, connect, like, that's I feel like when you find your people, like, I have my bug people, I know where they are, where you can, like, if you're going through their neck of the woods, you can, like, hang there, right? So I think this also, like, really was like an ethnography. It was like the culture of surfing. And I loved how yeah, everybody had a name and they all had, like, their hometown, and that was cool. But I think they would connect right away,
Mhm.
like, and I think the surfboards were just like the giveaway. That was the flag, right? Everybody knew why they were there. So that was just it was cool. It was cool, and you just felt like, I'm in the taxi with them, it was cool.
Yeah, it was like, when they're with the suits and, the surfboards
Yeah,
under their arm.
the suits.
I thought of the ex-presidents, obviously, in Point Break, but then I was also like,
Uh-huh.
like, because of the time period, it's like if James Bond was a surfer, like, he'd be wearing one of
Mhm,
those suits, and that's how he'd be hitting the beach. But one of the parts that I really enjoyed or jumped out at me right away was when they go to Africa and the kids start trying to copy them, take pieces of the house, you know,
Yeah.
mhm,
and just jumping in the water. I was like, it's so cool because surfing is a very unique American thing, and like those people had never seen that before. And now it's like
Yeah.
that probably stayed with them for the rest of their lives. Like they thought about those two guys, and who knows what
mhm,
it did to those kids or how it influenced them,
mhm,
and, I just thought that was like when they teaching the kids in the water that I mean, that's really cool to think that you could travel around the
mhm,
world and then impact somebody like that in a way that, they probably didn't expect it, and the kids on the beach definitely didn't expect that. So it's
mhm,
cool.
Yeah, and it's well, and it's cool. It's cool on a number of different like levels. It's cool that they did that they went there and
mhm,
did that. It's cool that they documented it, and then it's cool that like it's in the film, and then the film goes out into the world and reaches
Mhm.
all of these people. So now all these people are seeing how they interacted with the natives in these different areas, but then these people are also learning and appreciating, the sport of surfing. It's
mhm,
just yeah, like it really has like, a ripple effect.
Yeah.
No pun intended, but I remember the first time I saw it was on television. They used to play it on Stars like early
hmm,
on like the weekend, like mornings, and my father was watching it cuz he had seen it like years before, and he was like, "Oh yeah, this is the endless summer." And so I was like watching it. I was always interested in surfing. I like surf music, and I like the idea of
Mhm.
surfing, and of course, the immortal classic Point Break,
mhm,
like you see that at the right age and it's just like, yeah,
mhm,
that's what I want to
Mhm.
do. Even if I can't, like I'm just going to watch this and like live vicariously through, you know, Bodie forever.
Mhm.
Like and carry the spirit of him with me, and at the end of the movie, like he's like, at the end of Point Break, he's looking at like that wave, it's like, oh shit, yeah, like, but this movie, The Endless Summer, has it for real.
Mhm.
And it's like,
mhm,
oh, that's fucking terrifying. Like it gives
mhm,
a whole different like gravitas to like anything you've seen in popular culture about surfing because this is real.
Yeah.
mhm,
You know, even as a small child, there was a movie called Back to the Beach with Frankie Avalon and Annette Funicello and Pee Wee Herman. And it's like it's all about surfing this like mythical wave. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's cool. But at the end of the day, like they're on a set,
Yeah.
mhm,
and they have
mhm,
stunt surfers. Like this is
Yeah.
real.
mhm,
And if nothing else, you leave this film with a greater appreciation for it as a sport, for these
Mm-hmm.
people as athletes, and as surfing as a skill,
Mm-hmm.
and like what they persevere through in order to experience their euphoric outlet.
And there were some points though where I wasn't sure because of Bruce's like sense of humor, there were some things that were a little sarcastic. So that like the comments with the stonefish, for example, like I googled that. I was curious, like was he just kind of amping it up a little bit? We're like, no, that is really serious. You don't want to bump into one, and you will find them in those kinds of habitats. So yeah, it is again like there's that whole chill stereotype, but they really have to be really aware of where they are and what's in the water there. So I think that also heightened or made clear what kind of dangers they were facing in going into places that hadn't been surfed because they can't really, even in Ghana when they were meeting with the locals there, I looked into that a little bit too, and I know like riding waves, like that's something that was already there, and obviously they were fishing people, and so like they moved down the water, but moving on the water with like the surfboard in that way, a little new, and like so they couldn't really talk to people. And even if they could, like they were different
Mhm.
languages, so they couldn't get a lay of the land. So I never realized, yeah, how dangerous it isn't just a matter of bumping yourself if you hit the waves wrong and your surfboard hits you, like that could be really brutal, maybe even fatal. If you bump into the wrong fish, that could be really bad.
Hmm.
So yeah, it was you turn the wrong way on the dunes, you could end up who knows where.
Yeah, I love when he's talking. It's kind of near the end of the movie, and I think he was talking about YMA Bay and how like the ambulance is always kind of there, and it's not uncommon to
Yeah.
see a fire truck. And it's like
Mhm.
when people wipe out, sometimes it can be funny, but nobody was laughing when so and so wiped out and broke his collarbone and 3 ribs. And it's like,
Yeah, and you see him walking away,
yeah.
like, in
That's
pain.
crazy. And to think, you're in a different country, you don't speak the language. Can you afford to be taking a trip to the hospital if something happened to you? How could
Mhm.
that would probably just derail the entire film,
Hmm.
and then
Mhm.
just recovery time and it's over. It's all that money you've invested so far. Yeah, you got footage,
Mhm.
but then if someone had gotten really hurt, that's it. The project's
Mhm.
over.
Well, I think
Mhm.
I think one of the reasons that the documentary works so well and is so entertaining, and Bruce Brown is so good with the narration, is because he and Mike Hynson, they would take it around and show it in actual, like, community centers and whatnot, and Lions clubs and things like that. And he would perform the narration live,
Mhm.
like to a
Mhm.
room full of people. He every night, he'd be talking and just saying it. So over the course of however many months they were doing that, and as they were traveling up and down the West Coast, he was refining the edits. Like, okay, yeah, this part's too long, or this part, doesn't work, or oh, I need something like this. Like he was like getting like the live workshopping feedback.
Like test
Mhm.
And the
screenings.
film, yeah, the film that we experience now is the result of like all of that time and energy and effort on the post-production end. It's
Mhm.
like, okay, yeah, I know I want to make an awesome movie about surfing. Okay, good. You save up and you do it, and you raise the money and you go, and you don't know what's going to happen out there, so it's okay. Yeah, like they could have stepped on a stonefish and died in 15 minutes, and that would have been the end of the
Mhm.
movie. It could
Mhm.
have been a short. Luckily it's a feature. But then you get home with all of this footage and all of this stories, and I'm sure he has like journals and diaries and everything. And just putting it all together and finding that story that fills, the goal
Mhm.
is pretty awesome. One thing I love about it though is how, yeah, we don't start off with Robert and Mike.
Mhm.
We don't start off with the two main characters. We start off with just surfing. And this is what it
Mhm.
is, and this is how it works, and this is where we do it, and this is why we
And
do it.
summer. Mhm.
Yeah. And then we meet Mike and Robert, and we go on like the first leg, but then we break away and
Mhm.
we go check out Hawaii for a little bit.
Mhm.
And then we come back and we go on an adventure with Terrence, and through South Africa, and we get over, and then we break away and we go to YMA Bay.
Mhm.
And then we come back with Mike and Robert, and they finally make it to Hawaii. So it's kind of like bookended in this like, kind of fun and interesting way as well. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's really Bruce too. I think, you know what, Steve, as you were talking, I realized you never hear Robert or Mike.
No.
Correct me if I'm
Yeah.
wrong, right?
Never.
So, and then you just said, Peter, like you don't even start the story with them. So it really is like Bruce's story.
They're subjects.
And it would be interesting to hear like, what do Robert and Mike, like you see his commentary or you hear his commentary on what they're doing, even when they're trying to impress the girls. I think it's like Robert like does the spin on the surfboard or something. He's like, he's never done that in his life, so like you just hear all of it's really, but you barely see Bruce. I know he's like, I think he's on the cover, right? But it's like a black silhouette. And then there's that shot where he goes under the water and he says like, you'll see me for like a moment with like bubbles coming out my ears or whatever. So it is kind of an interesting dynamic because the Robert and Mike, like they're really likable. They seem really likable. There's like those few like humorous like moments that are set up when they're reading their books, and you like see the expressions, or I forget where it is, where they're on the plane.
Yeah.
And that may have been like created.
It
Like,
was,
they
it
look like
was,
they're going down.
yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't a real thing, but you see the looks like they were very photogenic, but yeah, you never hear them. You just kind of get Bruce's take on them. And I would imagine they'd have to be pretty adventurous.
I'll tell you that when I was watching the section of the movie toward the final bit there at the end when they're in Hawaii, those people's bodies are flying near each other. I'm like, I was just cringing. I was like, oh my God, I could just imagine you get hit like that. It's brutal. Because I remember when I was a kid, me and one of my close friends, our families would go to the beach together, and he had the boogie board, the foam half board thing. I remember one day he went out too far, and I told him not to, and then you hear the lifeguard blowing the whistle, and he got pulled under a wave. And you had the bracelet thing that was with the wire attached to the board, so you'd move the board, and it hit him in the head, and it dragged his face in the sand under the wave. He came up there to get like the medics, and like they were fixing his eyes.
Wow.
He couldn't see for a while, and I was just like, just thinking about that, watching these guys fall 40-foot waves. I'm like, oh my God. I saw firsthand what happens when you're like 2 feet, and I was like, oh my God, I couldn't imagine. But these grown men's bodies flying at each other or the boards, and these guys keep going out there. It's crazy.
Yeah, the expertise like on the board, the footwork was pretty incredible. And you could see like why they're so fit, because it's really like every muscle to like keep themselves balanced, except for the one dude who I loved, and I can't think of his name, but he was like 200 something pounds, and like he was just like on that board. Do you remember that guy's name?
I don't remember his name, but I know who you're talking about. Yeah, there's so many names thrown out in the documentary. It's like I can't keep track of these people. Like if I knew him, like Bruce Brown knew him, like yeah, that's so and so and that's so and so. But like it's really like, to me, it's Mike and Robert, Terrence, and then everybody
just, like,
else.
cast of characters. Yeah. But I loved that one guy. Like just watching him like just hold that wave down. It was great.
It was like watching The Thing, from the Fantastic Four, like watching The Thing surf. He just was not moving.
Awesome.
He was just made of rock and put on a board,
And then the boxer that would he would hit the wave and the wave would hit him back or whatever. Some of the commentary for some of those guys was great.
Yeah, that big guy was like, I refuse to move. he wasn't getting off that board. I refused.
Yeah, and he was doing the footwork in his own way. It was cool.
That's what you need to surf, right? You need balls and balance, I guess, to be on those boards that long. Because some of that stuff is scary, man. The ocean scares the shit out of me. Period.
Well, it is interesting though, because like what would I'm watching the documentary, and like I said, like I have an interest in surf culture and surfing. Like I wouldn't mind trying it if the opportunity were presented and I was feeling like good that day. Right. When I was younger, I was like, yeah, man, I want to go surf. Right. And now it's like, oh well, yeah, let's see what the weather's doing. Like what's up. Like I mean, if I could go somewhere like Cape St. Francis on the perfect wave, it's like 4 feet mechanical, like, oh yeah, let's try it, but like taking, the risk of like open water with like whatever's going on out there, I don't know about that. And then you see these guys wiping out. It's like, yeah, what the fuck is like possessing them to get back into that? Like, what is driving them to go back out there to do that again, to like, and when they're in Waimea
Practice.
Bay and they're talking about how like, they'll sit and they'll wait to like get out to try to go up the wave. It's like, oh man, like why? I understand why, but
Yeah.
I'm still like, part of me is like not it's not
Yeah,
computing.
well, yeah,
Like
because
Mhm.
like
you could die. Like, when I was younger
Yeah, it's like mountain
yeah,
climbing though.
when I was
Yeah,
younger, I was like, "You know what?
people go for
I
that.
think I think I wanna do skydiving. I think I wanna try it." Now I'm like, "What are you out of your fucking mind?" 'Cause I would get
yeah.
the chute that doesn't open, and then I was like, "Well, there
Yeah.
you go." And as I'm falling to my death, I'm like, "Idiot. Why'd you do this?
Mhm.
We didn't have to be here right now, but we're plummeting."
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
I have this
You
magnet
could
at
have been at
work.
home playing California games.
Yeah, yeah. This magnet at work that says, every dead body on Mount Everest was a highly motivated person, so maybe calm down. And I think it's like that. It's these big waves, it's a mountain, and it's just kinda like conquering it. But it's not just like you don't just get to the top, it's just like, I think that's one of the things I liked about, like, the balance and the relation they had with the ocean. Like, the ocean
Mhm.
wins
Yeah.
every time. It's just getting covered by it for that little bit and being able to stay there because 'cause you're gonna get thrown, and you're gonna come off of the board. So it doesn't even seem like it's about conquering the wave, just getting to ride it
Yeah.
for a little
Maybe
bit.
it's
Yeah, well,
So,
it's like
yeah,
it's the respect that
a
they
rush.
have for the ocean. Yeah, it's a
I
bit of
think they
thrill.
do.
It's a bit of thrill seeking, but it's
Yeah.
also a bit of like companionship in a way,
Mhm.
a
Mhm.
camaraderie or like a place of acceptance or being,
Mhm.
There's like that moment of clarity, and then there's those waves that they just sit on for like minutes on end, and like, you start talking to yourself and reciting poetry and all
Yeah,
that
yeah.
stuff. It's like, yeah, okay, I got that. That's kind of like the bunny slope, and then you're going on the murder horn.
Mhm. Mhm.
maybe it's a metaphor for life, right? Like, life could be messy and it could be unpredictable, but then you look for those little pockets of time where it's like, "Yeah, I'm
Mhm.
happy. This is good." Yeah, I don't
Mhm.
know.
Mhm.
I love the whole movie, start to finish. Like I'll sit down and watch it anytime with anyone. That's an open invitation to the world.
Mhm.
Um, I would love to see it in the theater as well. But for me, yeah, I love when they go to Cape St. Francis. I think that might have been when I first saw the movie. To get back to that story, I think I may have walked in when they were going across the dune desert, and I was just like, "Where are they going? This is like, yeah, like this is like so unreal."
Mhm.
Because I've been to the beach and the water's right there. Like they're going
Mhm.
across like the desert to get to this beach, and when they get there they find the thing that's been hidden from civilization and humanity forever. It's like the best kept secret in the surfer world. It's like, wow, that is like just a magical story, like that sounds like made up because it's just so fantastic, and like that was at the end of it. It's like in there's a metaphor in that too, where it's like, yeah, you got to go through these trials and tribulations. You got to go on this journey to find the treasure or to find what you're looking for. Like it's not going to find you. You got to go look for it. So I love that part, and that part of the story, the way it's like set up, executed, crafted, and then presented and narrated. But yeah, the Waimea Bay scene where it's just all hell's breaking loose. It's like, holy shit, yeah. And I love the history behind it too, where he says like,
Mhm.
they watched the waves for 10 years
Mhm.
before they decided to even try to surf them. Nobody surfed it until 1958. So 10 years before is 1948. And yeah, I mean, surfing comes from like Hawaii, and probably like World War II troops that were stationed
Mhm.
there discovered it and then brought it, to the States and California because that's where the surf is, right? It's the most comparable climate and water like activity to Hawaii. So I love just that like little bit of history that comes from it, and then just seeing, yeah, the reality of it, because again, growing up, you see it in movies, but this is a documentary. This is real. And so that's a bajillion times more exciting and engaging than anything anybody's ever going to come up with in a script.
Well, you think
I loved
okay.
the Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say, when you think about, going through the desert and not sure if they're gonna find anything, there's
Mhm.
a level of
Mm.
faith that I think they had to have, period, for this thing, because you could have went to all these countries and you could have run into any number of problems.
Mhm.
Customs,
Mhm.
carrying the surfboards through the airports. It could have been any number of issues. But they had the faith.
Local government,
Yeah,
local
yeah.
crime, local whatever.
Being murdered, not speaking the
Mhm.
language, getting robbed. There's any number of things that could have went wrong, but they had all this faith that I would guess it would just work out, and it did. And like I just thought when they were going through that desert scene, I was like, oh, God, all that sand, I can't stand it. Like I feel for them and how hot it must have been. But it's like, could you imagine if they would have got over there and they did find nothing? I immediately thought of Spaceballs. It's like, we ain't found shit. Like when they're out there combing the
Uh-huh.
desert, but luckily they persevered and they got through and they.
I mean, they had a map. They knew there was
Mhm.
water there, but yeah, they didn't know what kind of surf
Right,
they
with
were
the yeah,
gonna
what they
find. And they could
Mhm.
have found a lagoon, or a bay that had no real action. Like that they found what they did is just it's magical. And that to me is one of the, you know, you watch a movie, right, for like a sense of escapism, a sense of adventure, this vicarious experience that you're having with these characters and these people that you try to relate to. And with this being a documentary and that being something that like really happened or perceived or presented as really happening, who knows, maybe they knew the perfect wave was out there, maybe some local kid told them, but Bruce Brown decided, oh well, let's, for the sake of the film, let's make it this.
Mhm.
Who cares, because it's giving me that sense of adventure
Mhm.
as I'm watching it, and that sense of excitement and that sense of like, I love watching them surf down the dunes. They get on their boards and they ride them like sleds. Like, that's so cool
Mhm.
too, you
Mhm.
know? So yeah, that whole sequence for me, the Cape St. Francis perfect wave, that's really it. And then YMA Bay is just a nice punctuation on the whole story because it really gives you a grand perspective of the extremeness of it, right? You've got like the little wave that you can just like coast along endlessly. Okay, yeah, that's tons of fun, for like 5 or 8 minutes. But Waimea Bay is like, yeah, like let's see what you're made of. It's like it's like the expert level of the video
Yeah,
game, right? You're no longer easy or medium. You're going difficult, and you got to have the skill set to function and achieve your goal.
yeah, that's yeah, I like I said before earlier, I think that when the movie ended for me, I was like, "Oh, man." I didn't expect to feel sad, and I
Mhm.
wasn't just sad, like, for me, "Oh, the movie I was enjoying is over." I was kinda sad for them, like, "Oh,
Mhm.
that's gotta be such a rare, unique experience." And I mean, and who knows? Maybe there's
Mm.
people who copied their exact journey after seeing this thing, right? It's
Mhm.
totally possible, but
Mhm.
Yeah.
at the time, for those 2 guys, well, the 3 guys really, how unique, how special that
Mhm.
must have been, and that's like a maybe I don't wanna say it's the most impressive thing they've ever done in their lives, but maybe it was. Maybe those guys never
Mhm.
achieved anything that cool again, and who knows? I mean, I think there's something beautiful about that, if it was their greatest achievement or their fondest achievement, that they never hit that height again, but there's something kinda beautiful about that if that's where the height for them ended, you know what I mean? Regardless of how the movie was received or
Mhm.
whatever, but just that experience, I don't know, I think there's something kinda cool and kinda special about that.
Well, and that it was all documented and then shared with the world, because there's just tons of inspiration to get from this. Like I said, like you can decide like, oh yeah, I totally want to try surfing, or oh yeah, I'm never getting on a surfboard in my entire
Mhm.
life, or like, oh, that's really cool. Maybe I'll go check that out one day, or even just the idea behind it of like, oh, they faced such
Mhm.
danger on a day to day. Maybe I can face a little bit of danger myself,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know.
and, and honestly, like, from my perspective, what I enjoyed about it was it wasn't so much the surfing as much as it was, like, the human dimension of surfing.
Yeah.
I think, like, I'm not particularly interested in surfing, but I like learning about people, and like I liked learning about what they paid attention to. Like water temperature is big,
Yeah.
like clearly, and air temperature, like that was something that came up. So like that kind of how they talk about it. Like the interactions that they had. I think Steve, when you were saying like you were sad when it ended, it's like, yeah, it's their adventure, whether it was climbing a mountain or surfing, whatever it was like time you get to spend meeting somebody new and then meeting new people with them, like all of whether they were long interactions, like Terrence hung out for a while, or the short ones, like the taxi driver that kind of like took them around, because they did face danger, but they met a lot of cool people too. And I think for me, that was the part. That's what I liked, how when you went to different beaches, there were different names in that location. There were some different approaches. There were different histories with surfing and like experience with surfing. They talked with kids, not just in Ghana, like that interaction, but like kids elsewhere. They got to see Henry the Seal and the men in the gray suits. So, and then like those people that weren't really on their side, like the one, I don't know, he wasn't a policeman, but the guy that told them like no surfing after 11, so like those like human interactions. I think that's what I just like getting to hang out with them for a while. And then, yeah, it kind of stinks when they have to go back home. They got to get back to their summer there.
Yeah.
Right.
I think also, however you feel about the film. I mean, I personally, I liked it, but if you see it, and for me, one of the takeaways should be, we should all be that lucky to get to do something we love to do, or if we can carve out some time just to try to do something we love to do for as long as we can, just a little snippet of time. And I think that's kind of awesome. We should all strive to have that happen. These guys took a winter and tried to do this cool thing, and they did it. And yeah, if everyone tried to do that, maybe people would be a little bit happier in general. Just spend a little time trying to do something you enjoy.
I also feel like one of the takeaways was you got to wire the places where you are. So maybe we can't all go across the globe, but we can get to know the places where we are, and the people and the animals and the rocks. Don't want to bump into the rocks.
I also I like that it's not just a story that you're told. Like, it's a film and it continues to exist and it continues to endure. So yeah, you're sad when it's over, but you can always watch it again. You can always take this adventure again. You can go back to these places, and there's more to explore because there are other films like this. It opens up doorways that you may not have otherwise gone through or found or realized that you enjoyed, So I think that's something that for me is really special about this particular film. And then also just, I said this before about the understanding of surfing and surf culture, but also the resonation and the impact and the legacy of this film. It's like, yeah, this is the documentary and this is, kind of like the cornerstone of it. But then from this, you get a broader understanding of surf culture. So now, the person who grows up in Denver or in Kansas City, where there is no surf, right? They go and they find it, or they find something in themselves, and then maybe they write a story that incorporates it, or it leads them somewhere on some other adventure. It's just the inspiration that comes from this film and this story is endless. I think that's pretty special.
Yeah, definitely.
That'll about do it for us here today at the Visually Hidden Selects podcast. We will be discussing a completely different film next time, so make sure you head over to our YouTube channel and subscribe so you don't miss any future selections. You can catch Steve and Bendler over at Steve's Pop Culture Corner on Instagram. Louise and I, of course, are also on Instagram as well as Letterboxd, so you can follow us over there and find out what we've been watching and see what we think. And until next time, hang 10!